All right. Wonderful. Okay, and in the meantime, let me share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So once again, good morning. Happy Friday to everyone. I hope you all have really nice weekend plans. It's supposed to be a really nice weekend with some sun. And so we want to thank you, myself and Casey Eisman, our Managing Director in Human Resource, myself, Gabriela Herrera, Director of Compliance and Risk, as well as Myra Flores, who's also supporting us, and Ms. Sandy Amaro, who's also supporting with these training sessions. We welcome you. As you all read in our invitation, this training comes to us from our lovely governor and the state of California as something new in the sense that we're having to train for it. However, not necessarily new for all of us here at Para los Niños, because you will see that a lot of these components we already have implemented and I train upon every year when I do my emergency training at every site. However, this particular training was something that came about from a bill that passed about actually 2 years ago. However, Newsom just actually asked that it be implemented as of January 1st. And so the goal here, we have until July 1st to comply. And, here at Para los Niños, we all, follow rules and we comply with what we have to do. And so, this is the lovely training. And so we've put on these sessions in the hopes that, we get this done by July 1st, obviously. And this will be overseen by CalOSHA, who is the overseeing agency that basically manages and oversees labor in California. And so with that, I will also allow Mr. Casey. Are you there, Mr. Casey, to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Yes, I am Casey Eisman. I'm the Managing Director of HR. I use he, him pronouns. I want to appreciate everyone's time today and engagement. I know this is not the lightest of topics for a Friday morning, but it is definitely an important one. So we appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you, Casey. Wonderful. All right, here we go. So in today's training, this is some of the things that we're going to be talking about. Like Casey said, definitely not the lightest of topics, but definitely something that we need to speak about and make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to just violence across the workplace, right? And so, like I said, this is a new law that we now have to comply with and make sure that we follow as part of it. We have to obviously train our colleagues across PLN, but also be continuous about, right, how we're implementing different just workplace type of prevention plans. And along those lines, our safety committee, this particular group already got trained on this training. And so they're well versed with the ins and outs of this. And also they are your site person to go to for whenever you all have a question, a concern, and we'll get more into where you could find that list of safety committee members. Okay. Also, we'll be talking about how to report and investigate, right, these type of workplace violences if and when they do happen, and also how to seek assistance when wondering how to prevent things from happening at your workplace, and also very important on how to respond to that specific type of violence happening at your site. Okay. So like I said, this is a workplace violence prevention plan that we had to put together in collaboration with obviously legal and myself in risk management and compliance along with human resources. We put this plan together. It's a policy, as a matter of fact, right? Policy plan that Casey will tell you a little bit more about where to find it. But part of it comes with this, training session. And so this plan is designated to protect all employees as well as clients and visitors from any threat of violence in the workplace. Employees must be familiar with PLN's work violence prevention plan. This is always a mouthful for me. And their role in preventing and addressing incidents of workplace violence. Because like I've said before, when I, come to your site, safety is not just on me. It's not just on Casey, for instance, right? Safety is on everyone, all of us at Para los Niños, right? And how we inform each other and how we just communicate with each other whenever we see something. Casey?
Thanks. So one of the things that we'll emphasize throughout the session today is there's a lot that's built in around transparency with this policy and making sure that folks have access to information. So we want to make sure people are aware of how to obtain a copy of the plan. It's something that's accessible to employees both electronically and physically. And if folks want a printed copy, it will be provided to you at no cost. So in terms of obtaining a copy, it is available via SharePoint. It is available via the Dayforce Hub if you want to view it electronically. If you want a physical copy, and again, at no extra cost, you can also contact your site safety committee member. And that list is available and will be provided at the conclusion of the training. So we also want to make sure folks are aware of who is responsible for the administration of the plan. And so the Workplace Violence Prevention Plan Administrator is Danetta Brewer, Vice President of Human Resources. Her contact information is listed there. Her responsibilities are implementing the plan, overseeing the hazard assessment and inspections for our various sites, and responding to reports of workplace violence. She's also supported by Gabby and myself, of course, as well as the safety committee members from each site. So one key part of her responsibility, the administrator will ensure that implementation of the plan is coordinated with other employers whose employees are reasonably expected to be in the workplace. So we do have some co-located sites. And so that's something where we do need to coordinate with other organizations in those situations. Workplace violence, why is it? What is it and why does it happen? So we'll talk about a few different types of workplace violence. But basically, it's any act of violence or threat of violence that occurs in a place of employment. And so that can include the threat or use of physical force against an employee that results in or has a high likelihood of resulting in injury, psychological trauma, or stress, regardless of whether the employee actually sustains an injury. It also involves any incident involving threat or use of firearm or other dangerous weapons, including the use of common objects as weapons, regardless, again, of whether the employee sustains an injury. So the main thing to emphasize there is the threat of workplace violence is something that is very important to report, even if no one is actually injured. We don't want folks to feel like they have to wait until that point before reporting things. But we also want folks to know that workplace violence does not include lawful acts of self-defense or defense of others. So there are 4 types that we'll describe. Type 1 violence is workplace violence committed by a person who has no legitimate business at the work site. It can include violent acts by anyone who enters the workplace or approaches workers with the intent to commit a crime. The second type is violence directed at employees by clients, students, vendors, or visitors. The third type is violence against an employee by a present or former employee, supervisor, or manager. And the last type is workplace violence committed in the workplace by a person who doesn't work there, but has or is known to have had a personal relationship with an employee. So again, those are the 4 types: people who have no association, clients or customers, employees or former employees, and then people associated with current or former employees. So the Workplace Violence Prevention Plan elements, there are employee responsibilities and involvement, communication procedures, reporting procedures, incident and emergency response, post-incident response and investigation, hazard identification and correction, and record keeping and evaluation. So we'll walk through all of these stages today. Gabby?
Thank you, Casey. So employee responsibility, things that you guys should all be aware of as just simply an employee of Para los Niños and a colleague to all of your fellow colleagues, right? So all employees are responsible for using, obviously, safe work practices, right? That means we follow policies, we follow procedures, and we try our very best, right, to keep a safe work environment by promoting safety whenever and wherever possible. So some of the things that, right, this includes is obvious one, right? That's just what we do at Para Los Niños. Refrain from threatening, harassing, or using dangerous behavior. Report all threats, violent acts, or workplace hazards to your supervisor or manager. Like we said, also your safety committee member who is at your site. Cooperate with efforts, right, and trying to resolve workplace violence concerns. Let's try to nip it quickly, right? Evaluate each situation. Let's assess. Let's talk about this, and document any workplace violence or incident, of course. And lastly, obviously, right, call security or law enforcement if an employee, a customer, well, client, right, visitor is just demonstrating violent behavior or any type of feeling of safety, right, that you feel is a concern. Obviously, right, we encourage you to call 911 as always if you feel that this is something that is just escalating or has already gotten out of control, and definitely if they need medical attention. Okay, how to prevent workplace violence. So obviously we start by evaluating each situation, right? Every situation is very different. It could start off as something very simple, right? And escalate, or sometimes it could just quickly have escalated to something bigger. Be alert to potential dangers and always trust your instinct. I always talk about this at the training, right? Always go with your gut. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. Do not isolate yourself. Be in your office space. Make sure people know you're there, right? And make sure who else is in your office space. I know that right now, there's certain office spaces where people come and go. That's just part of, that particular business or rather the movement of that particular office. Just be aware of who's always there with you. Always keep an open path for exiting. I talk about this again all the time. We always need to know where is our exit and what would be our exit plan if we need to exit the building. And lastly, recognize those kind of pre-attack behaviors. And this is not just with, our colleagues or clients, right? This is also just even recognizing those when we're walking to and from the parking lot to our office building, right? We're looking for signs of that whitening of the eyes or these, jerky eye movements, quick breathing in someone's behavior, clenching already of the fists and twitching muscles, and definitely, uncontrolled yelling. Those are definitely signs of someone not having, obviously, a good day, and something that we need to be aware of and quickly react upon by removing ourselves from the situation or calling for support. Communication is key. We have to communicate, right? We talk about if you see something, say something. So in order to maintain a safe and secure work environment, we must communicate. We must obviously keep a clean line of communication on all matters of workplace violence with our employees. We want to facilitate a continuous flow of two-way kind of communication. That's between your manager, supervisor, and employees. Safety, health, and security information is obviously a form that is really understandable and maintained, right? And please understand that, all of this needs to be done without fear of reprisal. Whatever you share with your supervisor, with your manager, or, your safety committee member rep, is going to be confidential, of course, and we should never fear that we're going to be, right? There's going to be reprisal over that. Communication, like I said, is a system that, we're going to use to be able to inform employees and vice versa of any conditions, right, that increase risk at the workplace. Post and distribute safety information. That's always something that we try to do as much as possible, whether it be through the news and notes or what have you, right? We're always trying to keep you all aware of just the conditions around our sites and anything happening within our agency. Reporting system for reporting workplace violence, and we'll get into that. Casey?
Thanks. So we do want to make sure that folks understand employees' role in reporting workplace violence. When in doubt, report. As Gabby said, we really want to make sure that folks are not hesitating and that they are bringing up any concerns they have, not only about actual incidents, but about threats of violence. So all employees are required to report any threats or acts and should do so as follows. One possibility is notifying your supervisor. But again, it's not limited to that. You can also raise concerns to the workplace violence administrator, again, without fear of reprisal. And if you wish to report anonymously, you can contact me directly. The manager, supervisor, or manager on duty will contact law enforcement if appropriate and will coordinate reporting and investigation of the incident. The supervisor or manager will complete an incident report log, and the administrator will inform the reporting employee of the investigation results and any corrective actions taken. And we want to highlight here that this is different than a lot of other situations. A lot of times with incidents that are reported, we're actually limited in what we can report back on. And again, transparency is one key aspect with this policy, where we do have a duty and a responsibility to report back on the outcome and what corrective actions have been taken to make sure that folks are aware that we are addressing issues that are brought to our attention. As mentioned again at the bottom, PLN strictly prohibits retaliation against any employee for making a report of workplace violence. We keep emphasizing that because we want to make sure that folks do feel safe and comfortable bringing these issues up. And know that any effort to intimidate or prevent folks from raising concerns will be subject to disciplinary action by HR and leadership. So in terms of incident and emergency response procedures, oh, sorry, Gabby, you want to take this?
Sure, if you'd like. Yeah, I'll take it. De-escalating in a volatile situation. You keep freezing, Casey, so I'm not quite sure. There's a little bit of a glitch on your end, but that's totally okay. So this really is about just, talking about what we do to de-escalate, right? Any type of situation. Do's and don'ts, really, right? First off, let's not block exits, right? Leave an escape route for yourself. I spoke about that earlier. Don't match the threat, right? So if they're yelling, let's not start yelling, right? Speak in an even tone and voice and present polite and calm attitude. Don't give orders. No one likes bossy people, right? Keep communication simple, to the point, and focused. Don't fight back. Avoid physical contact and aggressive behavior. And again, don't get too close. That's part of the, don't fight back of sorts, right? Don't get too close. Maintain a safe distance from the person or just physical barriers. And lastly, if the situation cannot be diffused, remove yourself entirely from the situation, right? And that's when you call for either law enforcement if you feel it's needed, or you call for, someone else to be there to support you. How to get help. If you need help with dealing with a workplace emergency contact, right, or emergency situation rather, obviously, staff is assigned to respond to these workplace emergencies. You could ask your safety committee member to support with whatever is happening at your site. The list, like I said earlier on, of all of these committee members is in the back of the actual policy that Casey mentioned, is located in the SharePoint. You could call security personnel. If you do have a guard on site, please let them know that something is happening, communicate with them, give details so that they know how to handle the situation. Otherwise, call your supervisor on duty. Make sure that they are there and they're aware of what is happening so that they can provide support. And lastly, again, if it's just something that is already out of control and the need for law enforcement is needed, please call 911. What happens next, right? So post-incident response procedures. So after an incident has happened, right, we want to make sure that we're, one, documenting for many reasons, right? One, because we have to include these in a log now, but not only that, but we also want to make sure that we are keeping track of these incidents, right? So when a violent incident takes place at your work site, right, the workplace violence prevention administrator or designee, Casey and myself, will promptly conduct a post-incident response and investigation. What does this entail? Well, we want to provide immediate medical care. That's always first, right? If someone is actually injured, physically injured, we need to provide them with first aid or call 911 to be able to provide medical care for injured employees. Take any measures necessary to prevent others from being injured, right? Again, if it's something that's getting out of control, start evacuating colleagues, staff, clients, visitors, whomever's on your site. Start evacuating. Identify all employees involved in the incident. Super important. I know that you're thinking, well, all of this, chaos, how am I supposed to do this? It's important, right? That you and someone else, like we said, support is there to be able to support with these kind of details. Assess whether any additional threats remain. Did you hear, gossip of something happening? Did someone else hear something, right? Was the threat already there and we just didn't know about it? And then lastly, obviously, conduct a post-incident debrief as soon as possible with your team. And this is something that Casey and I obviously will be, available to support with, right? Making sure that we gather the right group and we talk about what happened, right? Could we have prevented this? Or what could we have done different? Check in with those that are affected by this, right? The HR continues to have wonderful resources posted on Dayforce for where you could call. Magellan is one of them if you were part of some type of incident at work. Report the incident as required by HR and risk management. Please fill out those incident forms, super important. And lastly, evaluate the incident, right, for gaps and deficiencies in how we responded to it. Super important. We can't get better if we don't know what we didn't do right. Post-incident response and investigation. So these are the kind of things that Casey and I will be there to support along with our administrator and safety committee members, right? When incidents do occur at the workplace, these are three of the things that you'll see that we're going to be working on. Collecting factual information, visit the scene, of course, take pictures, see what happened, interview those people involved, any witnesses, and obtain any records, or not records rather, but reports by law enforcement if any were taken. Determine the root cause. What happened, right? Was it employee to employee? Was it client to employee, employee to client? We just never know, right? Examine the area for security risk. What happened? How did that person get in the site, right? Was that door locked? Should have been locked? Those are the kind of things that we're going to be looking into. And then lastly, we're going to identify and try to institute any corrective actions and, implement preventive measures so that it doesn't happen again. Casey alluded to this earlier. We will have to, we are required to put everything in a log. And this is part of not only the law, but it's also, a way for HR and risk management to keep tabs on the things that are happening across our sites and to use that information as well to be able to support preventative measures going forward. Right? So we ask of you to be good reporters, basically, right? If you see something, say something, right? But also refrain from discussing any details, right, of the incident with others if you were involved with it, right? We want to make sure that we don't start gossiping or that we don't, right, start sharing information that, we just simply don't need to start alarming folks. That's one. But also because, it's part of an investigation. We're going to still be investigating the details of the incident, right? Supervisors, managers, please record all relevant details with this incident. You will be provided a template, a log, the template log, so that you could include all of these incidents if they happen at your site. And then lastly, try to get descriptions from any witnesses. Super important, right? Sometimes we only see what we see when we're in the actual incident, when it's happening, but other folks might be seeing different angles, right? Or be listening to other comments. So it's always important to take any information and description from witnesses of the incident. Make sure to get their names, right? It says addresses. This is really where, it comes from a place of making sure that we're documenting things properly and that we're addressing situations with them. Casey? Oops, sorry, I'm skipping all over the place, huh? Here we go. Are you frozen?
Okay.
There we go.
Am I, can you hear me?
You were frozen for a bit. Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. I apologize for my internet connection. So we'll walk through a few scenarios for how to handle different types of workplace violence.
You froze.
So one thing that we want to cover is active shooter, and folks, I froze. I'm so sorry. I'm in Hollywood. My internet connection is spotty. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to step in?
You know what? I'll take it. It's fine. I could take it. Okay. So this one in particular, we're going to talk about this shooter. It's okay. It's okay. Here we go. All right. So again, right? Active shooter, lockdowns. We train for these, and we want to make sure that we are always refreshed on the information and making sure that we're doing what we need to do. It's very simple. 3 steps, right? Run, hide, fight. That's really the concept of active shooter and how we respond. Running. When you hear of the situation occurring or whatever it is that's starting to happen, right? You hear gunshots or what have you, run. Run if you can to a safe place, right? Be able to, just go hide and stay in that hiding place until law enforcement comes and gets you, or you hear an all clear. Hide. I talked about this, right? We're hiding. You stay hidden until someone comes and gets you. That's law enforcement. That's, the commander-in-chief at the site, whoever's dealing with the situation, right? Be out of sight, right? Keep that office or classroom, light off. Dark places, you don't want to be seen. Provide protection from, obviously, the bullets or whatever, by keeping away. Don't make yourself visible to anyone who's trying to look through the window to see if anyone's there, right? Lock the door. Block the door if you can. Turn off the lights, like I said. Turn off your phone. And do not make noises. As much as possible, try to stay quiet because you don't want to call attention to yourself. And lastly, right? Don't be a sitting duck. This is what law enforcement always trains me and masses that are there. If the intruder sees you, fight, right? This is what we're asking you to do. You start using whatever is around you to be able to defend yourself. Act of violence by coworker, client, vendor, or visitor. Okay. So sometimes, we will be, unfortunately, we've had some incidents, minors, but, of incidents with a client, perhaps, right? Sometimes it's a domestic partner or other visitors who get aggressive. And this is where it's important that we all pay attention, right? To one, we follow the visitor policy that's posted at every site, ensuring that we're always asking what is that person's business when they're visiting our site, right? To ensure that we're keeping everyone safe, right? Also a reminder that PPLN has a 0 tolerance policy, right? For violent acts or any type of threats, whether it be by another employee to another employee, by a client to an employee, or by any visitor, right? This includes if you hear any rumblings of a weapon or joking of any kind, if you hear it, report it, okay? It doesn't matter who it's from, you have to report it. It's our obligation to ensure that not only ourselves are safe, but everyone else in our site is safe. If you are, right, subjected to a threat or violence by a coworker, or you're aware of another employee, right, or individual who has been, right, threatened to violence, you are to report this information. Please don't keep this to yourself. As small as it may seem to you, it might be important. This is why we ask that you communicate immediately to either your supervisor or Casey or even myself, right? And let us know what you heard or what you know so that we could address it. All threats should be taken seriously. Obviously, guns and other weapons are strictly prohibited on any PLN site or premise. If you see someone carrying a weapon, if you know of someone, please report it immediately. If you are found with any of these items in your possession, know that this is subject to severe discipline action up to and including termination. Responding to theft. You're thinking theft, right? The wrong thing to do. If you suspect of someone taking things, right, whether it be in your office space or whether it's because you saw someone taking something, under no circumstances are you to stop the individual, okay? Think of your family. They want you home. We don't want to get ourselves involved in anything that is going to be unsafe for us. You should try not to approach or detain the person, right? Just let them be. Violating this policy places both you, like I said, and PLN at risk, right? And it's just not going to be tolerated. We ask that you just refrain from getting involved, but instead report it. Report it immediately. Employees who stop or try to detain someone, right, who is right in the middle of, stealing or something or other, right, can be and will be, subject to disciplinary action. The right thing to do, right? Like I said, if you suspect someone committing theft, whether it be a client, whether it be a visitor, a vendor, another colleague, immediately notify the manager, right? Your manager, your supervisor, your safety member, your committee member, or even your administrator. Document any identifying information of the individual. So this way, when we're investigating, we know who we're looking for. And provide information about the suspect to management or law enforcement if needed, right? Record keeping and review. Casey alluded to this earlier about how this particular law requires us to document everything and make sure that we're reporting back to those individuals involved for how we handled the situation, any corrective actions, or rather just anything that we needed to do to fix the situation from ever occurring again. These records are going to be kept for 5 years. Violent incident logs, right, will be also kept for 5 years. Training records for 1. And then anything that we have to investigate will be kept for 5 years as well. Hazard identification and evaluation records, things of that nature, are obviously available upon request. If you ever are part of an incident and you want to see these logs, by all means, just reach out to Casey or myself and we're happy to share those with you. Part of the training, right? Like I just spoke about earlier, we have to make sure that, everyone is in compliance. Lauren, if you give me a quick second, I'll get to you in a bit. We're required to keep really good records, and Cal OSHA, from our understanding, is definitely coming around and making sure that everyone is in compliance with this training and making sure that we're keeping good records of everything that we're doing. Review of the workplace violence plan. This obviously is available to you, like Casey said, on the SharePoint. If you need a copy, feel free to ask your safety committee rep. They'll have a copy for you as well. We will periodically review the effectiveness of this policy and make any changes if needed. We'll be obviously reviewing it for deficiencies or anything that we observe that becomes apparent, right? Where we need to change it. And this is also where we encourage everyone at PLN. If you have suggestions, if you have a comment, if you have a concern for something that's already in the plan, bring it up to our attention. Call, email Casey or myself, and we're happy to have that conversation with you about your concerns. Remember, if you don't report it, we can't investigate it, right? So if you see something, say something. If you witness, experience, or learn of any non-emergency violent incidents at your work site, please report them. Report them to either the workplace violence administrator or Casey or myself. And also, please use your safety committee member as your resource. They are the ones that they're at your site. Right? They are part of your daily team. And they also have been trained on this and know what support to give you. And lastly, call 911, okay? If it's that urgent, if it's an actual emergency, please call 911. And lastly, right, if you do have questions, like I said, and concerns, this is where you could reach Casey and I, and Danetta as well. And now we've come to the conclusion where we are going to open it up to questions, comments, suggestions, whatever it is that you have for Casey and myself. We're happy to answer them. Please just take yourself off of mute and place your question. Let me stop share. All right, Lauren. Lauren, do you want to take yourself off?
Sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button. I thank you for that presentation to you and Casey. Very helpful information. But I was surprised to learn that there's a disciplinary policy for intervening in theft. That just seems really counterintuitive and just very unnatural and extreme. Like I know that if I were in the office and something was happening right in front of me, like I wouldn't be thinking of what's the policy of Para los Niños. I'd be just thinking like, hey, what are you doing? Stop. Like, you know, especially if it was like somebody just walked up and grabbed a computer, or like, you know, from just the street, or somebody was just going through my desk and taking my purse or something like that. I would be wanting to, I mean, it would just be natural to say something, but the fact that I could be disciplined and like fired for it, like that seems crazy.
Thank you for your comment, Lauren. Much appreciated. And I'm sure others are probably thinking the same thing. And so I'll take part of this comment, and then I'll let Casey maybe speak on the other. But it's similar to how when I train on lockdowns, right? I talk about, yes, there's this instinct feeling of trying to prevent and help others, right? And so when I talk about lockdowns and not, right, going through those hallways or checking to making sure that everyone else is safe, right? We understand that you want to help. Absolutely, 1000%. But when we ask that you don't get involved, it comes from a place of wanting you and everyone else at Para los Niños to go back home to their families because they're waiting for you. Sometimes it's just not worth it to get involved in a situation that could harm you. We never know how that person is going to react with you trying to stop them from doing something, right? And this is why we try to remind everyone about Los Niños. This is why it's important that these trainings are had, that we all know what we need to do in situations like this. All we ask is that you walk away. I know that you're thinking, but they're taking something right in front of my eyes. How am I not supposed to? It's just not worth it, right? We want to make sure that everyone here always goes home to their families. They're waiting for you. And it's just simply not worth going out in the hallway and, you know, checking to see that everyone has been in their lockdown position. We have to trust that everyone is going to remember these trainings and just know what to do. Similar with these kind of situations. Theft, we hear about it all the time on the news, right? Good Samaritan, trying to just, you know, help out they end up being the victim. We just don't want that. We don't want that happening. Now, as for possibly, right, being disciplined and possibly being fired, like you said, that's just something that we have to say because we want to make sure that you guys know how impactful this would be for us, right? And how much we care about making sure that you guys are all safe. Casey, any thoughts? He must have walked away. It's fine.
No, sorry, I'm here. I just am trying to go off camera because of my internet connection. I apologize. You know, the one thing I would say is there's obviously a case by case component to this. You know, one of the things that I would say is it's important to differentiate between self-defense and escalating a potential violent situation, right? And there's lots of different permutations of that. You know, someone who acts in self-defense obviously would not be subject to disciplinary actions. Someone who intervenes in a situation in a way that escalates the potential for violence and puts other employees at risk, that's really what we're trying to prevent. So I would just sort of refer back to the de-escalation emphasis. So we're obviously not trying to you know, punish people for protecting themselves, but we just want to make sure that people are not pouring, you know, gas on a fire or potentially escalating the situation.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Lauren, for that comment.
Hi, my name is Elvia. I'm the area supervisor for Crusoe. I guess my question to you is also, I guess, related to what the colleague just questioned. If it's a parent situation and it's within the center base, obviously we would not just de-escalate the situation, not really just go interfere and stop them, but how would you go about that? Like a de-escalation as a parent? Obviously, we may have that short period of time to call our security from outside to just help us de-escalate that situation or get them, or you know, escorting them out of the center base. Like that's probably one of my scenarios. The other scenario is obviously a parent that's probably very upset and coming to our, you know, my particular office to either, you know, talk about through things, but a little bit more passive aggressive. How do you guys feel like we should take those initiatives?
Thank you, Elvia. So for me, first off, it comes to, you know, you all have walkies, right? You guys all have radios. It's important that you always keep that handy next to you so that this way you could call for support or you could call for backup. Along those lines, right? Calling for the guard to come inside and assist you with, you know, being able to have a conversation with the parent. And my first thought is always, you know, when in your office, you know, it's always good to make sure that your door is open in case, right, something else continues to happen or this, you know, person continues to get aggressive. And, you know, if at any point you feel like, you know, this conversation is not going to get any better, excuse yourself from it, right? Take a moment and say, you know, give me a second, I'll be right back, and just walk away from it. Walk away, remove yourself from the situation. And then at that point, you'd let the guard intervene and support.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gabby, with that incident, with that scenario, are our guards trained in de-escalation techniques?
Yes. That is something that Blanca, who leads our security guard team, works very closely with the actual in making sure that they're fully aware that, you know, they need to know how to de-escalate situations and ensuring that they're doing right by folks, right? And not making things worse.
Evelyn, I also want to, I think, just be super, there's a fine line between de-escalation. There's a point where you're de-escalating. If that's not working, it has a potential to go in a different direction. The guards are not authorized to engage physically with folks. It is simply de-escalation. And in the event that we do need to call police, then they will radio to do that.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other thoughts, questions? Again, please feel free to reach out to Casey and myself via email or extension. I encourage you all to go to the SharePoint, download the actual plan. It's in its entirety. Go through it, write questions, make notes, and bring it to our attention if you have any other questions or concerns.
Hey,
well-
Gabby,
Yes, Lisa.
I'm trying to think of how to phrase this question. It really comes more from a need of, will there be any reporting or summary of events? That's probably not the best way to put it, but like I would have no, I'll hear about some things that happen at the mental health site. Because awareness is a form of protection, right? Like having some sense of how often incidents are happening and what kind of incidents are happening at different sites across the agency, because so many of our staff don't just, work at one site. Will there be any like reporting out of incidents, not necessarily the details of incidents, but just increasing people's employees' awareness across the agency of what the frequency is, what type of incidents are happening, like kind of insights or lessons learned that will be done maybe in periodic, PLN staff meetings or something?
Yeah, great question, Lisa, actually. Very good question. So as a matter of fact, the answer is yes. So part of, your safety committee members' role is exactly that, Lisa. They attend quarterly meetings where we will be reporting out, and that's something that we've always done, right? I report out on how many incidents we had, and they're all categorized, and they are aware of everything across the agency. So it's for them to come back, and when they meet with you or your team, for instance, right, in your team meetings, that's when they could report out to your team to say, I just attended the safety committee meeting, and this is where we're at in terms of how many incidents have happened, and they're broken down by the type of incident as well. And you're absolutely right. Awareness is part of, being able to keep yourself safe as well. So thank you, Lisa. That's a really great question. We have a question on the chat. How about dealing with the homeless population standing outside of our sites? They can become a threat at any moment. Good question, Erica. What I can tell you is that along the lines with, in collaboration with the LA BID and other organizations, via myself and Blanca and Dan and his team, who are constantly reaching out to everyone that we know, really, to support and to be a partner with Para Los Niños in addressing any type of unsafe situations that involve the unhoused. That is constantly something that we're working on, Erica. And Blanca has a really great relationship with the LA BID, as myself, and also, with our law enforcement. We reach out to them always whenever we need support. I'm looking at the other question, sorry. Okay, it was a repeat question. So yes, so know that we're constantly in communication with other partners across LA to in our communities, really, to support with these type of situations whenever we have unhoused right at our site.
Gabby, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you are at a site that does not have security guards and you see an incident with the homeless population, if there's an argument, right, we work around the corner from Caruso, so we see it. Don't get off your car. stay in your car, walk back to your car, call, the site and let them know what's happening outside so that they can call, for support. If there is a security guard on site, generally they have relationships with the unhoused population around the vicinity. And so they have been up to this date, pretty respectful of our sites. And if not, they know who to contact. They have senior lead officer phone numbers, they have Gabby's phone number, and they can call for backup if there is an incident that is causing a dangerous situation, immediate dangerous situation to our site. And then you move into the protocol that we all are familiar with, if it requires a shelter in place, if it requires a lockdown, that's where those protocols then come into play.
Thank you, Sarah. We have another question. Can we carry a taser in our personal belongings? Tasers are considered weapons, and so we refrain from bringing any weapons onto any of our sites. And yes, Brenda, I can stay a minute after the the call. So we have 5 more minutes, and I could give you guys all back 5 more minutes of your lovely Friday and leave you with this. We want you all to walk away with knowing that PLN is constantly thinking of how to improve upon the safety of not just our staff, our families, our students, our clients, everyone that comes onto our sites. And we always, try our very best to make sure that we're communicating things of safety concerns or any type of new safety measures that we've implemented with Para Los Niños staff across the board. If you ever have any concerns, suggestions, we're always open to, listening to those concerns, obviously, and addressing them, being a thought partner. And also, if you have suggestions, right? 2, 3 heads think better than one. So please share those thoughts. Maybe you know of other agencies that are doing something, right? In such a way where you think, hey, maybe at Para Los Niños we could do something similar. Always open to that, right? Never be embarrassed to reach out to Casey or myself with any type of concern or comment. And I want to make sure that I leave you with this. We didn't speak a whole lot about it, but this also includes domestic type of violence within your homes, okay? We have to ensure and we have to remember that all of us in this group, each square represents a family, right? And we come to work, we come to do what we love to do, right? And no one in your office space may even know that something is happening in your home. And it's okay, it's no one's business, right? But your own. However, I leave you with this. If there is something in your home that you feel, right, is of danger to yourself, then it can possibly be of danger to your colleagues when you come to the office. It's super important, okay? We don't want to get in your business. That's not what we're trying to do. But we are trying to open up that window of confidentiality and conversation with you so that you feel comfortable to saying to Casey or myself or Danetta, something's happening in my home, right? And I'm not feeling safe. And I'm afraid that unsafe feeling is going to follow me to the workplace. It's important that you share that with us because it's our obligation at that point to be able to provide safety, not just for you, but for all of your colleagues in that office space. And not unless you tell us, we can't help. So please share, okay? We promise we will keep it to ourselves because that's what we have to do and because that is our commitment to you. We just want you all to share with us so that we can keep everyone safe. And again, I'll remind you of our visitor policy, right? That person who is in that front desk is your gatekeeper. Treat your site like your home. We don't let random people into our home, right? We ask questions. Why are you here? What do you need? Obviously, you know, in a polite manner. And simple as that. If they do have something to, you know, if they have a meeting or what have you, right? It's not for you to just allow them to walk themselves in. We pick up the phone and we dial that extension and say, hey, Sarah, I have so-and-so here to meet with you. Sarah at that point will say, yes, go ahead, walk her in. Or who knows, right? It might be something different. And I'm using you as an example, Sarah, right? She might be on that other end. She might tell me like, actually, Gabby, you know what? Yeah, no, I don't really know this person, you know, just don't let them in. We never know, right? But if we wouldn't have picked up the phone to just announce that person, we would have never known. Same with dropping off anything. Drop-offs, you leave them at the front. We say, thank you very much. I will make sure that they get it. We don't allow people into our sites. It's just not safe, right? Not safe for you and then for all your colleagues. Again, because we're not walking around sharing our personal business. So with that, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Stay safe. And if you have any questions, once again, feel free to reach out to Casey and myself for Danetta. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Gabby, for the training
Thank you, Kiki.
as well.